Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari.
Yamuna Tira
Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Mr. Pad Paramahansa Buddhika-charya Astottara to the Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Buddhika-charya Astottara to the Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Okay. Okay, I think. Just give me 1 second here. Okay. X38, page 455. 455. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this third day of May 2021 in SanDiego, a reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in chapter 10 entitled The Opulence of the Absolute. Text number 38 at the bottom of page 455. Dando Damayatam Asmi Dando Damayatam Asmi Nitir Asmi Jagishatam Nitir Asmi Jagishatam Maunam Chaivasmi Guyanam Maunam Chaivasmi Guyanam Jnanam Jnanabatam Aham Jnanam Jnanabatam Aham Dando Damayatam Asmi Nitirasmi Jagishatam Maunam Chaivasmi Guyanam Jnanam Jnanabatamaham Dando Damayatam Asmi Nitirasmi Jagishatam Maunam Chaivasmi Guyanam Jnanam Jnanabatamaham Dando Damayatam Asmi Nitirasmi Jagishatam Maunam Chaivasmi Guyanam Jnanam Jnanabatamaham. Go ahead, Alex. Dando Damayatam Asmi Gishatam Maunam Chaivasmi Guyanam Jnanam Jnanabatamaham Dando Damayatam Asmi Nitirasmi Jagishatam Maunam Chaivasmi Guyanam Jnanam Jnanabatamaham Dando Damayatam Asmi Nitirasmi Jagishatam Maunam Chaivasmi Guyanam Jnanam Jnanabatamaham. Anyone else? All right, I'll read the word by words. Danda, punishment. Damayatam, of all means of suppression. Asmi, I am. Nitihi, morality. Asmi, I am. Jigishatam, of those who seek victory. Maunam, silence. Cha, and Eva, also. Asmi, I am. Guyanam, of secrets. Jnanam, knowledge. Jnanabatam, of the wise. Aham, I am. Translation. Among all means of suppressing lawlessness, I am punishment. And of those who seek victory, I am morality. Of secret things, I am silence. And of the wise, I am the wisdom. Glenn, can you turn this up just a mic? Thanks. Purport. There are many suppressing agents, of which the most important are those that cut down miscreants. When miscreants are punished, the agency of chastisement represents Krishna. Among those who are trying to be victorious in some field of activity, the most victorious element is morality. Among the confidential activities of hearing, thinking, and meditating, silence is most important because by silence one can make progress very quickly. The wise man is he who can discriminate between matter and spirit, between God's superior and inferior natures. Such knowledge is Krishna himself. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and to all members of Sri Parampara, the disciplic succession. So, Krishna is continuing to enumerate various qualities in the material world, and with the aim of helping us to see him everywhere, even in this material world. He's been through various categories up to now, and generally he's speaking of, I am the most powerful of a certain category. I don't know, he hasn't gotten to the ocean yet, I don't think, but of bodies of water on the ocean. So the idea is, when you see these things that embody some glory, some power, some beauty, you're meant to remember Krishna, because he's the one who provides that essence that we're impressed with. So, dando damyatamasmi, punishment of all means of suppression. So let's think of this in a general way. First of all, most of us know, I think, that just being in this material world is a form of punishment. Most people don't understand that. But just having a material body is a form of punishment, because we committed the original sin, if you will, of leaving Krishna's association, of trying to be independent. Instead of living up to our real dharma, our nature, we're now in an artificial situation. As Prabhupada said, I just heard him say on a lecture, this body itself is a form of punishment. And people don't realize that. As we move through life, we change our view of ourselves and our view of our environment. But it's all in the same basic misunderstanding that we're the body and that we're related to certain other bodies. And the body, with all these senses, is a place where we can try to enjoy. And that very idea, I just read this at the end of the 3rd chapter, one of my favorite sections in the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna describes how this material desire, kama, which is headed by sex desire, but it pervades every kind of separate sense gratification we try to engage in. There's no denying it, that there's a certain amount of happiness there. But Prabhupada says, this is an incredibly important statement, that happiness is ultimately the worst enemy of the living entity. That pleasure we can enjoy, because that pleasure we can enjoy through the senses and the mind, convinces us that that this is our place of enjoyment. And he explains, because it's in the context, that this material desire or lust, it covers our real knowledge. Avitam jnanametina jnanino nitya vaidina kamarupena kontaya dushparena lenacha. That avita means to cover. Jnanam is knowledge. We have that word in this verse. This material desire covers our actual knowledge of who we are, what our real goals in life should be, what this human life is meant for, who the origin of everything is, what's the meaning of life. All of that is put in the background and ultimately obscured entirely. Even in human life, what to speak of lower forms of life. And so, once we understand, by exposure to the truth, through the Bhagavad Gita, through a pure devotee like Srila Prabhupada, coming through his books and through his institution in so many ways, as Prabhupada mentions here, what is matter, what is spirit, what is the controller of both? He describes that as the real essence of knowledge in the 13th chapter. Matter, spirit, and the controller of both. Now people are basically, whatever knowledge they have is of matter. They have no idea of the spirit, or some vague idea, not accurate. So when we realize, yes, that I'm being punished, that it's not something, it's not my bad luck, I don't blame others. This is one of the basic principles of devotional life, is that what does it say? Tatte nukampam susamikshramano bunjana evatmakritam vipakam. Anukampa means mercy. To see everything that happens in this world as the mercy of Krishna. We're in a reformatory, if you will. And oftentimes, like in a prison, if they're looking to reform the inmates, it can be pretty distressing and depressing. But if you understand, this is good, because I'm going to get, change my ways, And so we see if something bad happens to us, suppose we get ill or, whatever happens, it says, oh, I'm getting some results of a previous activity. I'm not blaming the immediate situation of some person here. I understand it's my fault. And I see that Krishna is so kind, he's minimized it. Like the classic situation, applying this when you first learn the philosophy. In the old days, when I first joined, we'd all take a stint in the kitchen, cutting up vegetables and everything while we listened to class over the PA system. So most of us aren't used to that. You cut yourself a little bit, All right, we got a first aid. We probably have a first aid kit in there, right? So, okay, I cut myself. It could have been so much worse. I could have lost a digit here. I was set to lose an arm or a finger or a hand, and now I just cut myself. Krishna's so kind, right? So that's a form of punishment. But if you take it as that, and you understand this is for my benefit, then you still remain positive about it, and you realize the actual situation. So so punishment has to be there. Now, in ordinary society, we see in our Shastra, like I'm thinking of King Prerequisite, when he went out, some of you may have read the first canto of Bhagavatam. So he's patrolling, going out, and he sees this, rogue dressed as a king beating the legs of a cow. He immediately pulls his sword. This is a major crime, of hurting a cow like that. And the whole thing becomes rather like an allegory. The cow represents the earth, and the bull, there's also a bull getting tormented, represents Dharma the bull. And the rogue dressed as a king is Kali himself. This is Kali Yuga. So there's a personality behind that. Now Kali means quarrel and dissension and always fighting. Sound right? Sound about right? About what we see in the world happening everywhere? Within families, between families, nations, states, everything. There's all kinds of fight going on. But he has a righteous king. He saw, I have to. This is a crime being committed right in front here, of my eyes here. And what it symbolized is the advent of Kali. How in this age of Kali, the 4 principles of religion, which we should know from reading the first canto, maybe we haven't read them, come up again and again. Austerity, cleanliness, mercy, and truthfulness. These are 4 principles that you learn when you move into the ashram. And there's 3 of them that are practically non-existent in this age because of the age of Kali. Austerity, cleanliness, and mercy. There's still some truthfulness, and that's being destroyed as we sit here. The whole idea of a shared set of facts and reality that we can, even that's going by the wayside. How can you live in a society like that, where you can't even agree about what is real or what is not real? You see how dangerous that is. So the leader of society or any organization has to be moral. That's niti or asmiti. Niti means morality, right? Of those who seek victory. So that's like a leader of anything. He has to be moral, has to be righteous. He has to be supremely concerned with the welfare of those who he's ruling. Not exploitative. That's the demons. The demons are looking to exploit every situation that they can find in. And unfortunately, so many of the leaders today are demonic. They're trying to cash in on their position, right? They're trying to exploit it. So punishment is essential for all means of suppression or rule, and morality or virtue for those who seek victory. Otherwise, you have so many demons in the Bhagavatam, and they personify just the opposite of that. Someone like Kamsa, Hiranyakashipu, did he personify niti? Niti is morality. I always think, the story of Dhruva Maharaj. Many of you. So you remember he had his stepmother, and he had his real mother. So his stepmother, she was called Suruchi. And the situation was the king was attracted, because Suruchi means very beautiful. Suruchi, very attractive. Hot, we called it. And so Dhruva was the elder, right? But his mother was Suniti, the same word niti, very virtuous, very, very saintly. So the king had been a little bit bewildered, and he became more attracted to Suruchi than Suniti. And so Suruchi took advantage, and she said, "Oh, you can't sit on the lap of the king." In other words, because who's gonna get the kingdom? She wanted her son to get the kingdom, who was playing on the lap. So Dhruva became very upset. He was being, and so he went to his own mother, Suniti, and she said, "What can I do? He's favoring Suruchi, and it was actually Suruchi who said, "You have to find God," And Suniti said, "Yes, she gave you a good advice. Only God can help you." So Prabhupada kind of adds, I don't know if he pulls this out of the Puranas or something, if I recall, it's not exactly in the Bhagavatam. So then Dhruva said, "Where can I find God?" And she says, "I've heard that the great sages, they go into the forest, to find him." She's a simple lady, but you should follow Suruchi's advice. So off he goes, 5 years old, into the forest, very, very, courageous. And who does he meet? Narada Muni. Narada Muni always shows up just at the right time to give just the right instruction to impart bhakti. Whether it's a hunter, or whether it's Dhruva, whether it's Vyasadeva, he's always appearing on the scene and giving just the right advice, He's got he's a Shaktiavesh. Shaktiavesh means invested with Krishna's divine potency. And there's different kinds of Shaktiavesh. He has the Bhakti Shakti, that he can impart bhakti to all. There's another one, Prithu, we read earlier in the 4th canto, a very ideal king, also personified virtue. And he had the Pala Shakti. Pala is what the leaders have to have, the ability to protect the praja, or the citizens, the innocent, the old men, old ladies, young people, women, cows. They all need protection in society. And to the degree that they're not being protected, you can see how sinful the society is. Look at our present society. So these are very important principles here. And Jnanam Jnanavatam, I am the knowledge of the wise. So that knowledge is what we're trying to get from Bhagavad Gita. Without knowledge, you're helpless. Because knowledge means your intelligence becomes purified, and you know things. You can control the lower self. This is again from the 3rd chapter. What happens when you get covered by too much material desire? It covers your knowledge. And then you're at the mercy, which is not very merciful, of all of those material desires in your mind. And the soul, that picture in the Bhagavad Gita, they still have it, the chariot, going down the mountain path dangerously, So yeah, it's an analogy. So there's 5 horses, the 5 senses, and they're running, and the reins are the mind, and the driver is the intelligence, but the senses are actually in charge. The intelligence is too weak to control the mind and the senses, and the soul is the passenger in the chariot and is being victimized by his lower self. The senses are out of control because lust has taken over. So knowledge is the antidote. When we read the Shastra, we hear, and we put it into practice with association with devotees, we strengthen the intelligence. And then we can say no to the senses and mind. Don't do this, do this. Don't hear that, hear this. And gradually you gain control. You strengthen the intelligence, you can control the lower self. And so that's knowledge is so important. Prabhupada, that's why Prabhupada emphasized from the beginning of his, when he started in the Gaudiya Math, he was always writing. Try to impart knowledge to people. Through Back to Godhead, finally through his hardbound books, the Bhagavatam, came to America, and BTG, we put it out, and Bhagavad Gita Abridged, Bhagavad Gita Unabridged, TLC, all these books gradually came out for the enlightenment of his students, his disciples, and other people who would read it. And it's that knowledge that is the foundation of our bhakti understanding. Okay, any questions on these points?
Yeah, Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Dhanavari.
Yes, thank you for the nice class. I have a question. It says hearing, thinking, and meditating. Yeah. Silence is the most important.
Yes, yes, that's good. All right, yeah, what does that mean? It means that, that when you're hearing, it's this one-pointed attention. The silence is in your mind. If your mind is all disturbed, there's a lot of noise going on, you don't hear anything. You may be, physically hearing, but there's almost famous thing in one ear and out the other. So the silence just has, and also in a physical way. You ever hear probably, the classes, especially in the early days, like 70, 71 in LA, there'd be a lot of ladies with little kids, and they really wanted to hear the class, and they'd come and hope the kid would stay sleeping, but he wouldn't. He'd wake up, and he'd start, and probably would stop the class. And, he would give a gesture or something. Some of you wouldn't hear anything on the tape, but, gradually the kid's, crying would become. So silence, in other words, the environment is important. But the most important part of the environment is in your own mind. You have to come with, the mind in a receptive mean. Probably there's a word in Sanskrit that's used to indicate how we should hear. It's called shushu. It's right there in the very second verse of the Bhagavatam. Second verse of the Bhagavatam, very important verse. Dharmak projita kaita votra, paramoni matsaranam satam, vedyam bastavamatva vastu shivadam tapatrayon mulanam. Shriman Bhagavate Mahamunikate, King Vaparayar Ishvara Sanjodin Javadudyate Tukatabi Shushushubi Stachana. That word Shushushubi is a form of the Shushusho. So what that is saying there, these are all kinds of glories of the Bhagavatam in that one verse. It's worth reviewing this again, because it's the whole idea is that. Are you with me?
Yes, Prabhu. Is that second chapter of Bhagavad Gita?
First chapter, first canto, first chapter, second verse, 112. The very second verse of the whole Bhagavatam. And so the first thing is that this Bhagavatam, you won't find any cheating dharma here. We're talking about param dharma, which comes in right in the second chapter in the beginning. So what is dharma projita kaitava? Kaitava is cheating. Projita means throw far away. So what is cheating dharma? Well, dharma is meant to be, it describes what real dharma is, that which evokes your pure bhakti for God, for Krishna, at Hokshaja. That's in the second chapter. But dharma is the first element of the four goals of Vedic life: dharma, artha, kama, moksha. Dharma is often used in most people's minds to get wealth, money. Within the Vedic culture, you have a part of the Vedas that teach the different sacrifices for Indra, for the sun god, all these different things, to get prosperity. Just like they have prosperity theology today. Bob, you've heard of that before, right? They have whole churches where people go. You pray really hard, you send in your envelope with $20, whatever, and you hope to cash in, right? Look, the pastor is cashed in. Look, he's got his own private plane. Maybe I'll... So it's a perversion, total perversion of religion. But there is something like that in the Vedic culture also. And Krishna, he criticizes that, worshipping demigods with the aim of going to heaven. That's in there. So, dharma, artha. So this is like the Protestant ethic. If you do church, you lead a very righteous life, then you prosper in the world. So dharma leads, in this calculation, to artha. Means money in this case. And with artha, you can get kama. You can satisfy your material desires. So we'll be very religious, go to church, give us our daily bread, and on like that. And a righteous life, but a prosperous life. So that's cheating religion, according to Bhagavatam. No. And so the fourth one is dharma, artha, kama. The fourth goal is moksha. Alex, what is moksha? Liberation. You knew that. So the idea is that after many lifetimes of working dharma and getting artha and enjoying sense gratification and taking birth again, and suffering like that, you realize, I'm not getting anywhere. Let me get moksha. I'll get free of all its horrible birth, old age, disease, and death, and the threefold miseries, and I'll be liberated. It's still a personal desire. Prabhupada describes that all of these things that we have to try to mitigate suffering in this world. Even now, I just put on this chadar. It'll get a little cool, and then in a little while it's going to get hot. So we're going to put the fans in. Maybe we'll get the air conditioning, which I hope. That's all little mini liberations we're trying to get. Liberation, mitigate the suffering in this world. And the biggest mitigation will be to not have to take a physical body at all. That's really mitigation, you know. I'll be so blissful, no more pain. But that's nothing positive, you see. That's not ananda. That's just, that's just taking a pain pill or something, you know what I mean? In other words, it's the ultimate pain pill. You know, permanent relief from all misery. Well, what about the positive? There's no ananda there. It's just relief from pain. So all of those are kicked out. Dharma for artha, and for kama and for moksha is out here. The only dharma we're talking about is the haitukiya pratayata, unmotivated by any material desire and stoppable. In other words, constant. Or no obstacle. So what's the motivation? There's no material motivation. The motivation is to please Krishna. Now, there's a very important progression. We have to get to that point. Because as soon as we think like that, especially we have our material mentality, it says, well, what's in it for me? If I'm just going to be pleasing Krishna, what's in it for me? But because we're forgetting the philosophy, that's where the knowledge is. We're part and parcel of Krishna. So when we love Krishna and we do, then we'll automatically become blissful without any further endeavor. And that's why, you know, when you get absorbed in the kirtan and you're really hearing the holy name, you know, you can feel a little, you know, happiness, bliss, something, you know, even a little tinge of it. That's the first awakening of natural ananda. That is our birthright. Anandamayo Vyasat. There's a Vedanta Sutra. There's one of the sutras in the Vedanta Sutra describing the Lord as Anandamayo. Anandamayo means full of bliss. It really means made of bliss. Sometimes you find ladies get the name Karunamayi. You know, it's kind of a name for Radharani. It means just full of mercy. You know, just made of mercy. So Anandamaya means made of Ananda, blissful through and through. Now we're part and parcel of Krishna. We have that nature also, but it's covered. We're trying to experience that Ananda through matter, and we're failing in life after life. But when we turn our attention back to Krishna, He reciprocates. If we're, withdrawing our senses from sense gratification and using them in Krishna's service, which is a basic definition of bhakti, then we find ourselves, first of all, peaceful. That's the first peaceful. When you vihaya, this is right in Bhagavad Gita, 2nd chapter. Vihaya kaman yaksavan pumang chadati nikspraha niyamamona hankara sa shanti madigachati. Shanti. Everyone knows the word shanti. I bet it's an English word by now. Peace. Peace. So what's the prerequisites? Vihaya kaman. Give up all desires for material sense gratification. So, Puman Shari Nixpa, living free of all these desires. Nirmamona Ahankara, having no sense of separate possessiveness, understanding everything belongs to God. And Nirahankara, not even being a sense of an independent doer, meaning that false ego. In other words, I belong to Krishna. You know? What is my duty? What am I supposed to do now in that relationship? Okay, chant Hare Krishna. Okay, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. You know? In other words, the idea is that you're withdrawing from the whole mistake of trying to exploit this world and enjoy sense gratification, and then being frustrated, and eventually getting old and dying, maybe getting COVID. Oh my God, you know, and there's so much fear. Where does the fear come from? The fear comes from that bodily identification. It's actually a very logical emotion, if you're identifying with the body as the self. But when you're at Krishna's lotus feet serving, then what's Prabhupada's name? You know, the AC. You know what it stands for? Abhay Charanaravinda, fearless at the lotus feet of Krishna. You know, because you know you're the body. If death comes just, you know. I've done it a lot of times before, millions of times, right? But what's so great this time is that I'm not taking another body. And even the awareness of it, he describes this in the famous Sadhu Sangashtaka, Kapila Dev's preaching. He says, Manashriya katam rishta shinvanti katayanti cha tapanti vivadastapa naitan mangata chetasa. He's describing the qualities of the sadhus, who are pure devotees. So, Manashriya, they've taken shelter of me. Katam rishta. Katam rishta means the very sweet descriptions of Krishna's name, form, qualities, and pastimes. Kata means talks, and rishta means very delightful. Shrinvanti katayanti. Now we're back to the question of where's the silence in the hearing, because he's talking about hearing and chanting. So silence means all the static in the mind that's preventing us from really drinking in the holy name when we chant, and hearing with one pointed attention. Shushu sho. Prabhupada calls it ardent hearing or submissive all reception. Submissive means that the mind is quiet, right? And it's drinking it all in, just like absolute nectar. That's the way the quietness comes in. And so in that state, one is completely fixed on Krishna, and tapandivadastapa, the miseries of this world don't affect him so much because the mind is on me. There's even material analogies for this. You'll find in the war field or even on the football field, people get an injury, they don't even know they're injured till the end of the game because they're so absorbed and everything, the adrenaline's pumping, right? And so that happens. Prabhupada gives the example of this great exemplar in our life, Stalin. So, but here the example with Stalin is that he was so paranoid that he was afraid he had to have an operation, but he didn't want to take any, what do they call it? Anesthesia. Thank you. Because he's afraid that they would get him when he was asleep, So the doctor said, "Well, do you want to get some?" Because this is like he had a major, operation on his stomach. He said, "No, that's all right. Go for it." And so he toughed it out, and Prabhupada said, "You see, even if something like that can do it." So the idea is that you can become tatikshava. This was the first quality of the sadhu mentioned in this third canto. Tolerant. You can tolerate so much when you are used to having your mind absorbed in Krishna, and you can stay equipoised even in difficulties like that. That's important. All right, so let's go on. We are.
Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Haribol. So the mind has to be quiet. That's the silence with the Jnana. Text 39. Yachapi savabhutanam bijam tadaham arjuna natadasti vinayatsyan maya bhutam characharam. Furthermore, O Arjuna, I am the generating seed of all existences. There is no being, moving or non-moving, that can exist without me. Purport. Everything has a cause, and that cause or seed of manifestation is Krishna. Without Krishna's energy, nothing can exist. Therefore he is called omnipotent. Without his potency, neither the movable nor the immovable can exist. Whatever existence is not founded on the energy of Krishna is called Maya, or that which is not. Okay. So, in other words, if something is not related to Krishna, it's just an illusion. It's a total illusion to think that something's not related to Krishna, and everyone's in that illusion. That's the whole idea. What is that verse? It's so famous. Bhayam dviti abhinaveshitakshyad ishadapetasya viparyo asmriti. That fear, which is the basic principle of material life, when you think about it. It's not long, living in this world before you encounter a fearful situation, right? Even a baby, right? It's separate from the mother. Suddenly the fear arises, because he's totally dependent on it. And as you go through life, whether it's your own body that suddenly doesn't work as it's, as you're used to, it's working, or there's some danger that arises or whatever. This is a fearful place, dukkali mashashvatam. And that's one of the most biggest negative aspects, is the fearfulness, anxiety. So that fear is part of Maya. That is one of Maya's weapons to keep us bound. Because when you're fearful, then you have to counteract the fear. And all you know is material things. And so you're going to do it with some weapons, some insurance, make alliances, and this and that on a material level. But there's no getting away from it, because ultimately you lose the battle with time, and you all have to face the end. Mrityu sarva haraschaham. That's also, we had that recently. Mrityu sarva haraschaham. As death, I take everything away. So Prabhupada gives this, simple either-or proposition. As devotees, we meet Krishna as Krishna at death. Loving Krishna comes to take us to the spiritual world. Whereas people who are total materialists, they see God as death, all-powerful death. Makes him, the biggest. It's Rockefeller, lived to 100-something, multi-billionaire. He just left his body a couple of years ago. Everything is taken away. Every last penny, his life, all of the relationships, and whatever, is gone. He has to face the music, And we know from the 6th canto, the Yamadutas are not very happy to see. All right? Yes, Bob? No, he's not important at all. And as far as where his experience going on now, you don't even want to think about it. I mean, go to the end of the 5th canto, you'll find out. So, Krishna is the seed of everything. This comes up again and again in Bhagavatam, all our literatures. This is Sarva Karana Karanam. I'm the cause of all causes. 14th chapter, Sarva Yonishu Kunteya Motiyak Sambhavandaya. It is I who am the Aham Bija Pradakpada. I am the seed-giving father of all living entities. This is the relation here. So that seed is really, he's saying, the cause of all causes. And what's wonderful about it is that cause of all causes is a person. It's not just some impersonal force. Because you look around in nature, and you can find so many things. Like how does a car work? Well, let's get under the hood. I know they don't have carburetors anymore, right? I'm dating myself, but you can figure out how it works if you know how to be a mechanic, right? And there's so many things. Well, why is this happening? Because this is broken, and your spark plugs are all full of soot or whatever like that. So there's all these causes, right? And then if you can get it fixed, now it's working. So now I know. Now I know why and how it works and how to fix it. But that's just illusion. That's Maya's illusion. Behind all of that, is Krishna. He's the one who made gives you the intelligence to make the spark plug. He's the one who oversaw the creation of the universe and is behind everything. So that searching out the cause of everything, this is the first mission of human life. Tato Brahma Jigyasa, very first Vedanta Sutra. We should be interested and inquisitive as our top priority to search out Brahman. What is Brahman? Janmadyasya yataha, second sutra. It is that from which everything has come, the seed of everything, and which sustains everything, and ultimately annihilates everything and merges back in. That's who we're looking for. So he's saying this in different ways. Bijam of all living entities, I'm the seed, and without me, nothing moving or non-moving can exist without me. So just living in this world, if you remember this, whatever you see should remind you of Krishna, isn't it? When you walk down the street, I mean, I take a walk every day. I try to take it every day. Missed a day yesterday. And I walk up. I like to walk up Everett's. I'm really familiar with two streets, Dawes and Everett's. I live on Dawes. So Everett's is a much nicer walk. It's one block farther. It's just the houses are nicer. There's hardly any people, and there's one block. For some reason, there's old growth. There's trees on that particular block that are maybe 100 years old. All the others have been planted more recently. Somehow, I don't know how they did it. And somehow I always think of the living entities in those trees, because the way they've been trimmed and everything, but they're twisted in this way, and it's just like they're in agony. living there for so long, and everything. So I when I first went, I was touching each one, giving Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Now I just chant louder, like that. Because I'm aware there's a living entity in there, who are completely helpless. If you got to trim me, I can't even say anything, So you see things different as a devotee. You see through the eyes of the Shastra. You see people, so much modes of passion and ignorance going on. These poor people, they're completely bewildered. They're all in a dream. And I've been doing this so long, sometimes I think, because there's always young people out there enjoying, I remember going down Fifth Avenue. And we used to go on Harinam when I was living in Brooklyn. I lived at the Brooklyn Temple for 2 years. And where's the best place for Harinam? Manhattan. There's so many people. And there's always young couples going by, and we're chanting Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, And you wonder what happens. Sometimes we're able to give them a magazine or an invitation. Well, that was like 48 years ago. So what happened to those young couples? They're in, hitting 70, 72, What happened during all that time? Well, the best thing that happened to them was passing by and hearing Hare Krishna for 3 seconds in their whole life, That has an effect, we know, right? But you just see that, so many liaisons and breakings and this and that, and people die, they get sick. Life just, the dream of trying to enjoy the senses, it turns into a nightmare. The body, at a certain point, it becomes like a prison house. There's no joy anymore. Unless you can take your joy not from the senses, from just your remembrance of Krishna. Because if you've trained the mind to think of Krishna, I like to relish some of these nectar verses, from the Shastra. There's this one poem Rupa Goswami wrote. It's a summary of Krishna's Vrindavan Leela. And every verse is like verse. Sometimes the verses go on 20, 30 lines. It's not an ordinary verse because he's describing it. So there's this one little phrase. I'll share it with you. One verse that is so wonderfully constructed, And it's like you can chant it again and again and again. And it just fills you with thoughts of Krishna. So he's saying, Navashashu Leela Langita Hayana Garga Vishkata Nama Nasayana Ringanamanda Nananaketa Namunani Matapata Goka the Chaitana. Now I know you didn't know what that meant, but I'll just tell you. So he says Navashashu Leela. So Navashashu Leela means little baby Leela, which included 2 big incidents. Killing Putana, and actually 3, and killing Trinavarta, who was the tornado demon, and killing the cart demon. Some of you may have read Krishna book, So these are some main instruments, but most of it is just, crawling around and, being a delightful little baby. So then it describes, after 1 year of this baby Leela, Garga Muni came and gave him the names. You see? Actually it wasn't 1 year, I think it was shorter than that, but he's Navashri Langidahaya and Garga Vishkadanama Nasayana. And then it says Ringana, which is crawling, Mandita, decorating, Nanda Niketana. Nanda Niketana means the courtyard of Nanda Maharaj. So he's decorating it with his crawling, right? Ringana Mandita Nanda Niketana, Monani Matarpata Gokala Chaitana. And with that sweetness of his big little crawling Leela, he's delighting the hearts of all the residents of Gokula who are seeing it. Ringana Mandita Nanda Niketana, Monani Matarpata Gokala Chaitana. Now, there are so many people out there right now, or let's say Friday night, Saturday night, be more, who are imbibing this, imbibing that, trying to get some happiness, forget, their other life, whatever, But everyone knows there's a limit, And if you exceed the limit, then you get wiped out, you can hurt yourself, whatever. It's not good. You get addicted. It's truly pathetic and tragic. People destroying their brains, trying to forget their troubles, trying to enjoy. But these vibrations, beginning with the Hare Krishna mantra, which has everything in it, they're a source of ever increasing enjoyment, depending on our purity and our ability to relish. So when you get to a certain point, you can chant and be happy anywhere. Just look at the Goswamis. They had so much wealth, right? Chakva Turnam Ashesha Mandala. Ashesha means without end. Mandalapati Shreding Sadatuchavat. So much wealth and influence, especially Rupa and Sanatan. Raghunath Das was a billionaire. Could have, he was the only child, heir. Didn't want any of it. So here it says they gave it up. Tyaktva Turnam, without hesitation. Once they'd been contacted by Lord Chaitanya, right? They became attracted. They gave it up like nothing. Budva Dina Ganeshako. They became very, very austere as far as possible for the benefit of the wretched of the earth and people who had no knowledge. And they compiled so many shastras and did what they did to help. We're living on their writings now. How did they live? From so much wealth and influence, aristocracy, they came down to as being as poor as you can be. No home. They lived under a different tree. Ate whatever they could get from different marukari, this and that. Very simple. Hardly slept. And the clothes, whatever they could pick up. Kopina, what does it say? Bhutva dina ganesha ko karunaya kopina kantashrita. Kantashrita is like what you find in discarded clothes, But what was their state of mind? They're not like these poor homeless guys, trying to find a little place to sleep, Miserable. Horrible. Depressed. No. Gopi Bhavarasamritabdalati Kallola Magno Mahur. Again and again, swimming and diving in the ocean of Gopi Bhava, the highest levels of intense prema for Krishna. So what I'm saying is that we can experience that. It's so wonderful. Even, in my old age now, I honestly don't feel like I'm, what am I going to do today? Can I watch all the TV all day? Should I go play some golf? What about this pain in my back? I mean, I'm trying to keep my health together, of course. But the idea is these verses, this chanting, this process, seeing Radha Giridhari, it never gets old. It's not like, I did that already. This is what the material mind is doing when you chant Hare Krishna. Hey, I heard that one already. What else can you show me? This is the material mind. That's why your mind wanders, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. But if you actually quiet the mind, talk about quiet with the knowledge, and you hear, and you see Krishna's form and everything, it doesn't get old. It's like, the taste is unlimited. You can work to. So we should aspire to do that, take up Krishna kindness seriously, and we're coming to the end of this chapter. Next, we'll finish it tomorrow. All right, we have 2 minutes. Any questions? Donavar, you had your question. Dr. Bob has a question or a comment.
Okay, well, I heard you say Ananda.
Hold it close.
Ananda is our birthright. Now that's our spiritual birthright, correct? Yeah. Because you say, you talk about the silence, and we look around this particular neighborhood, we see so many people that are talking to people that aren't there. Obviously there's commotion, there's noise in their head.
Yeah, yeah.
So they're at a point in their spiritual development where they can't have that opportunity.
The mode of ignorance becomes very, very dominant, and it's very sad actually.
Yeah.
So we don't want to go there. Be serious.
No.
And cut out the distractions and focus on Krishna.
Yeah. Move to Arizona.
All right, I'll give you a quick verse. English. Did you want to add something, Michael? Okay. So about the mind. Many of you have heard this one before. Alex has heard it before, for sure. But this is a verse that Lord Chaitanya quotes. It's probably by Madhavan Rupur. We're not exactly sure. But it's quoted in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Kamadinang katina katita padita duranideshas. Prabhupada would often quote, especially that first line. And it's about, strengthening your intelligence. So he says, in how many ways have I sought to obey how many ways have I sought to obey the seductive demands of my wicked desires? They've shown me no mercy, yet on I've gone shamelessly trying to quench lust's unquenchable fires. But now I'm rejecting these hellish desires, for my higher intelligence now has awoken. O Krishna, O shelter of fearlessness, please let me serve you with faith that will never be broken. And on that note, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari Bol. All right.